Alright, what is going on, Misfits, and anyone who just happens to like my channel for any reason at all? My name is Chaos the Gamer, and I just felt like going over a little small article about Starfield, because to be honest, I haven't heard a lot about Starfield ever since maybe earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, about, I think it was E3 or something like that. I expected to see something a little bit more at the Game Awards this year, but that didn't happen. So with that being said, we are gonna go by. We're gonna read an article by Joseph Yaden. I hope that's actually how you say his name. It could be Joseph Jaden for all I know, but I'm gonna assume that it's Joseph Yaden. And he titled this "Everything We Know About Starfield, Bethesda's Upcoming Sci-Fi RPG." And I'm actually happy that he did that because I didn't have too much information on what to go on. So he did this about last month ago, and he starts off by saying, Bethesda is a studio that has found great success with its massive single-player RPG games like The Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, and Fallout 3. While the company's recent fumbles with games like Fallout 76 and, to a lesser extent, Fallout 4 have been disappointing to gamers, the studio is pushing forward and has some ambitious projects on the horizon. One such project is Starfield, a game that was first announced during Bethesda's 2018 E3 presentation. Following Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda, rumors about Starfield's release have ramped up, and it's possible we'll get to see more later this year that actually didn't happen. We still don't know much about Starfield, but we've gathered as much information as we could to bring you everything we know about Bethesda's upcoming sci-fi RPG. When is the Starfield release date? My expectation would be, yep, exactly. Starfield is gearing up to launch on November 11, 2022 next year, which is 11 years after the original release of Elder Scrolls Skyrim. This was announced during Microsoft and Bethesda's E3 2021 presentation, where we got another look at the upcoming space adventure. During an interview with GameSpot, Howard advised that everyone should be very patient when it comes to getting their hands on Starfield. Bethesda hasn't said when it'll be able to show us more, which is partially why it was an internal debate concerning its reveal at E3 2018. There was discussion that Bethesda was originally planning to ship Starfield much earlier, possibly in 2020 or 2021. If the company was counting on shipping Starfield in 2021, the COVID-19 pandemic likely slowed their production, pushing it further out. Following the poor reception to Fallout 76 in 2018, Bethesda likely wants its next game to be as refined and polished as possible, which will take time. Pete Hines told Eurogamer that development times haven't changed at all when compared to the studio's past games. In reference to when we'd learn more about Starfield, Hines said, time frame wise, it would still be about as long as you'd expect when you look at Fallout 3 to Skyrim to Fallout 4 to Fallout 76. It's still going to be those periods of time. That hasn't changed. Or at least I don't think it will change from that based on what I know. Considering how common it is for games to be delayed these days, it wouldn't be surprising. Now, in terms of platforms, what we do know is that Starfield will be released for Xbox Series X and PC at this point. At this point, it's clear it won't come to PlayStation or Nintendo since Bethesda is now a first-party Microsoft developer. Before the game's E3 2021 showcase, GamesBeat Jeff Grubb said that Starfield will not appear on PlayStation, stating that it's exclusive to Xbox. Microsoft confirmed this during its most recent showing. For a while, it was unclear whether Starfield would come to Xbox One, but following its E3 2021 showing, Bethesda confirmed that it will only launch for Xbox Series X and PC. Speaking with The Telegraph, Howard said, "You don't ever want to leave people out, right? But at the end of the day, your ability to focus and say, this is the game I want to make, these are the platforms I want to make it on, and being able to really lean in on those is going to make it for a better product. Given the game's scope, it makes sense it will only be available for current hardware." Now, a trailer. We got our first glimpse at Starfield during Bethesda's E3 presentation at 2018, and aside from a conveying tone, it didn't reveal too much. Bethesda was actually reluctant to reveal the game so early, but as Howard explained during an interview with NoClip, fans had already suspected that the team was working on Starfield following its trademark filing in 2013. The team wanted to give fans a roadmap for what to expect from Bethesda Game Studios going forward and decided to pull the cloak off, but maybe a little too early. As some fans have actually pointed out, The more cynical side of the internet believes that the company revealed Starfield when it did to distract from the announcement of Fallout 76. I actually believe that too, to be honest, which didn't have the best reception. Even prior to its release, the company had to have known the community wouldn't take kindly to an online Fallout game, so perhaps Starfield and Elder Scrolls were revealed to hold fans over. Bethesda would never admit to that, of course. Fast forward to E3 2021, where Bethesda showed off an even more Starfield along with its release date. The 2-minute trailer didn't feature any gameplay, but it did convey the aesthetics and sort of what to expect from its tone and themes. It did have some gorgeous visuals, all of which were in-engine. In the trailer, a character can be seen gearing up a spacecraft for flight, though it's unclear if this is something you'll do in-game. We'll also look at a mysterious planet, a robot of some kind, and the inside of a spaceship. In terms of gameplay, it was probably surprising to see that Bethesda would unveil a new game, and one set in space at that. Yeah, honestly, I have to agree with that. Starfield is a single-player sci-fi RPG and is the studio's first new IP in 25 years. Though the developer attempted to create a game set in space in the 90s, it ultimately failed as it was cancelled. It seems that Starfield won't share the same fate as the team that prioritized its development and aims to bring it to current generation consoles. Presently, it's the studio's main priority as a smaller portion of its developers continue to work on Fallout 76 and the Elder Scrolls. Bethesda has 4 main studios under its belt, located in Austin, Dallas, Montreal, and Rockville, Maryland. I forgot about that because I live in Maryland. All of which are assisting with Starfield's development. Speaking of current generation hardware, the question of whether Starfield would be running on a new and improved engine has been on the minds of Bethesda fans since its announcement. After all, many of the studio's past games have been notoriously buggy and have felt outdated, even at the time of the game's release. With Starfield, it's not clear how it's going to run, but Bethesda has gone on record to confirm it will use the same engine as Skyrim 4, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76, known as Creation Engine. This might be an immediate turnoff to someone, but when you consider the game has evolved tremendously since 2011, it might as well be something totally new. As Games Radar explains, Bethesda hasn't added to the engine so much that calling it the same isn't as informative as you'd think. However, I like to pause for a second. In what I understand about game engines, having the same game engine and trying to implement things inside of that engine can actually be very detrimental to the game, because it can cause a lot of things just to not work and be completely buggy and cause a lot of things in the engine to conflict with some pretty simple stuff, if you know what I mean. But again, I'm not a game dev, I'm just a gamer. To continue, for Fallout 76, we changed a lot of it. Howard explains, all new renderer, new lighting model, and a new landscape system. Then when you go into Starfield, even more of it changes, and then Elder Scrolls, which is really out on the horizon, even more of it changes. In short, the fact that Starfield is still running on Creation Engine might not necessarily be something to worry about. Parts of Starfield were already playable as of E3 2018, that was about 3 years ago, and the game is even in better shape now. We know that the game we're making now, and one of the reasons we announced it is that it's looking really awesome. We have a runaway in front of us, and we know what's happening, Howard told GameSpot in 2018. When it comes to the gameplay and what to expect from Starfield in comparison to Bethesda's other games, Howard included, it has what you'd expect and more. That doesn't say a lot, unfortunately, sorry. It's different, but if you sit down and play it, you would recognize it as something we made, if that makes sense. It has our DNA in it, and it has some things that we like, Howard told Eurogamer in 2018. I'm sorry, but that is not a lot to give away on. In 2020, leaked images supposedly from Starfield surfaced, giving us a possible glimpse at the game's UI and characters. It's unclear if these are in fact real, but they certainly look the part. Another leak from Reddit and relayed by Games Radar suggests that each planet in Starfield is bigger than the entirety of Skyrim, though this has not been confirmed either. The studio is, of course, keeping a tight lip when it comes to revealing information about Starfield, but the main point is that it'll likely satisfy those players who love classic Bethesda games. In recent years, the company has tried to do new things like The Elder Scrolls Blades and Fallout Shelter, two games that were designed with mobile devices in hand. Starfield, on the other hand, will not be like that at all. Though that will be what they're though what will be doing what the heck though what will be doing in it remains to be seen. Sorry, certain sentences make me like, I don't get how they do proper grammar. In an interview with The Telegraph, Howard said the game is about 300 plus years in our own future, and Constellation is this kind of last group of space explorers. It's like NASA meets Indiana Jones meets the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, a group of people that are still searching for answers. There are a lot of factions in this game, but that's the main one that you'll become a part of. It's kind of like Skyrim in terms of the structure of the game, where you'll be going to be who you want to be, and then there are different factions that you can join and really carve your own path. It's still unclear if you'll be able to freely explore the universe like you can in No Man's Sky, but at this point, Bethesda hasn't given us any reason to believe that it'll be designed that way. We do know science and religion will play a part in Starfield, as stated by Howard. We asked many big questions in game that the kind of people that have asked when they look to the sky, what's out there, why are we actually here, and how do we actually get here? And we get into science and we get into religion. Fans worried about multiplayer getting in the way of a quality single player story. Looking at you, Fallout 76. Sorry, switching multiplayer for a second. And multiplayer doesn't have a lot of information in it. It just basically says that according to the Eurogamer interview with Bethesda, Peter Hines, Starfield is decidedly going to be single player, and the company has described Starfield as a core Bethesda game we've come to expect. The only time that this is going to be at this time set in place in space, which is going to be new to this studio. Since we aren't exactly sure what this game is going to look like, it's still too early to know about possible DLC. And actually, yeah, I'm going to skip over that too, to be honest, because DLC isn't something that you should be worried about. I hate when a company talks about DLC before a game is even out. Like, that's not a good way to market something, in my opinion. But keep in mind that Bethesda has also worked with Elon Musk to bring authenticity to Starfield, and Elon Musk is currently working on SpaceX, which is an actual space station project that he's trying to work on. At E3 2019, Todd Howard, Elon Musk, and the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley had a discussion about developing games, among other things. And Starfield was actually brought up. Howard told the audience he went to Musk's company, SpaceX, to gather information and inspiration for Starfield. This means Bethesda is attempting to keep the game based on reality while still making it fun to play. Howard has used the word authenticity to describe the way Starfield is supposed to feel. In the same chat, Howard described possibly using helium-3 to fuel rockets in the game. This ostensibly hints that some sort of space travel will be available in the final product. We have to gamify it some, so it's not punishing as actual space travel, Howard added. He compared space travel to Starfield to Flight in the 40s, in that it's still fairly dangerous. All of this will be fully realized thanks to part to collaboration with Musk and SpaceX, which is, again, not saying that Elon's SpaceX is actually the closest thing that you're going to get to understanding. Granted, there is NASA and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, but Elon Musk's SpaceX is actually a very good way to identify current establishment for space travel. I don't know if that's the proper sentence for me to say it, but this talk occurred in 2019, so much of what was mentioned could change, as games typically do evolve tremendously throughout their development. Certain ideas do stick, and while others, even if enormous amounts of time and resources are spent on them, might not ever come to be. This has been in the works for over 10 years, which is something that can absolutely scare people, but it's not nothing that you should be scared of if you have faith in Bethesda, But continuing on with that, typically Bethesda has multiple projects going on at once, with one getting the majority of the focus while others sit to the side and gas state. We know the company filed for Starfield's trademark in 2013, which means it had to have been thinking about it for a while prior to that. And speaking with Eurogamer, Howard said the studio had been at least discussing the game since 2004, with Bethesda fully dedicating staff to it around 2015. Despite the company having Starfield in mind since as early as 2004, wow. That doesn't mean it's been actively working on it since then, but at the very least, we know it's well in development and has been the studio's focus for the better part of the last 5 years. Howard told Jeff Keighley during a Game Lab discussion, "It took us a while to get the cohesive, this is what Starfield is, and now the project is off and running in a good way, and that was also why we felt good announcing it." For context, it took Bethesda at least around 5 years to complete development on Skyrim, assuming the team started to work on it as soon as the Elder Scrolls Oblivion shipped in 2006. With that in mind, the current COVID-19 pandemic has an effect on the game's development due to the studios being forced to work remotely. This practice, although necessary, is one that has slowed the production of many forms of media, not just video games. When will Bethesda show more of Starfield? As part of a November 11th AMA on Reddit, Bethesda Game Studio director Todd Howard said Starfield will be shown off for the first time next year. "We prefer to just show it, which will be next summer," Howard said, "and we're happy with the advancements we've been able to make, some of which you can see in the trailer shot in-game. This will likely be during Bethesda/Microsoft's E3 2022 presentation, which I'm really excited for next year, which typically takes place in mid-June. Since the game is due out in November in 2022, E3 seems like a safe bet for Bethesda to show the game in action. It's possible we'll get more information before then, but we'll expect to see gameplay until E3 2022. And that is it. Alright, so a few things that I can take away from this is that, yes, this game has been in quite some production time for a decent amount of time, right? I don't want to say that Bethesda does not fully have a grasp on what it is that they're doing, but I also feel that based on what they're saying and what they're presenting, they have an idea of what they want to do, but they're not necessarily sure if it will work or be effective. I don't know. It just seems like sometimes Bethesda's work on what they say is just very plain. It's like sometimes they say, yeah, we're working on something and we're really studying on the economics of it to make the game very good. And it's like, okay, fine. But my concern are basically the other things that held so many previous Bethesda games back. I'm not concerned about the amount of research or time that you put into the game. My concern for Bethesda games are how smooth are they gonna run, you know? Like, and speaking of which, if you're working on a project for 10 years, Cyberpunk 2077, if you're working on a project for that time, Joseph actually said that when you're working on something for that long, the project tends to change over a period of time. And when stuff like that happens over and over and over, in my opinion, it could be you just going 2 steps forward, but 10 steps back because you have to redo a decision that you were made or correct a decision that you made like 2 years ago about the system that you have in place. But now you have to totally rethink the system because, you know, things have changed 5 years from now and we have different things like machine learning, crypto, NFTs, and all this other good shit. Things change over years, and because you had to adapt in mid-production process, that could be very detrimental to how soon you can actually put a game out or to how soon you can actually show a game off. Which is kind of like I don't want to say that's like a basic thing in game development, but again, I feel like that's a common thing in game development. When you're working on something for so long, but then you realize you kind of had to backtrack and change a couple of things because this system that you have in place is just way too cumbersome. But regardless of which, as always, come on, man, I'm just a gamer. I don't know everything on the planet. I just like to give a good 2 cents, and I like to give a good, opinion, if you will. As always, if you do know me, thank you for hanging around. If you don't, my name is Chaos the Gamer, and yeah, GG's.